Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. I hope that you are all doing well. This is where I talk about the books that I'm reading. I like to read diverse books and I highlight Canadian literature. If you are new, thank you so much for checking out my channel. It really means a lot to me. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Today I am going to be sharing some of my experiences of Wordfest here in Calgary. Wordfest is our annual book or author festival, and I was able to attend several of the events. There is so much that I love about literary festivals. Obviously, it's a great way to see and meet favorite authors, but it's also a great way to learn about new authors and to meet book lovers and readers. And I really enjoyed all of the events that I was able to go to. And I'm really excited to share some of that with you. I think I'm still on a high from it. It was that great. So I want to highlight 4 of the events that I attended. The first event I want to share with you was so much fun. They called it WordFeast, so a play on Wordfest. Love those word plays. So this was a 9-course meal. It was at the District, which is a food hall here in Calgary, in the Beltline neighborhood, if you know the area. So originally there was supposed to be 8 authors and 1 editor. The idea was that every course, the authors would move tables. So we had the opportunity to meet several authors, and it turns out that more authors showed up than they had expected. Great problem to have. So we had some surprises along the way. There were 3 authors that were there that didn't make it to the table that I was sitting at. But I want to kind of just shout them out anyway. And the first was an author that I have talked about on my channel many times. And that is Hernandez, who is promoting her book Behind You. And I will be talking about her a little bit more when I talk about another event that I went to. So the other 2 authors I am not as familiar with. Robyn was there. She's the author of several books, but she is promoting a book called The Haters. And then the other author was Beverley McLachlin. She was promoting her book called Proof, which is, I think, the third or 4th book in a series. Okay, so the first course was a beverage, and I had the strawberry soda, which I must say was pretty tasty. And we had Shashi Bhat join us. She is the author of Death by 1,000 Cuts, which is a short story collection. Great title, by the way. She was a little shy at first, but I give her kudos for coming to this event, clearly stepping outside of her comfort zone to meet all of us. She was lovely, and I'll be talking about her again too. So the second course that they served was honey butter chips from Takori by Duncan Lee. And we had a bonus author, I'm going to say, join us. And that was Canisia Lubrin. She was a pleasure to talk to. And I wasn't familiar with her work, although now that I know more, I should have been familiar with her work. Canisia is a poet, and she has recently published her debut fiction called Code Noir, which is actually shortlisted for the Governor General Awards. I was so happy to meet Canisia, and I will be talking about her again soon as well. Okay, so the third course was Sushi Rolls from Joyfish by Duncan Lee. For this course, we had Nita Prose at the table. She is the author of The Maid, The Mystery Guest, and she's currently promoting the Mistletoe mystery, which is kind of a novella as part of that series. So Nita Prose is an editor, and she said, she goes, I don't really belong here, but I assure you she totally belonged. She talked about where she got the idea of Molly, who is in this book, and that the next book in this series will be out next year, and probably the last. I asked about what her plans were after the series, and she said that she does have some ideas kind of trickling around out there, but nothing concrete yet. The fourth coast was Ioza from Uzumaki. This time we had Anne VanderMeer join us. She is an editor, and you could tell she has some very interesting stories. She has written some nonfiction, but she said that she is forced to write nonfiction. She enjoys weird fantasy, and I think she had an anthology, and I cannot remember the name of it right now, but I will put it in the description box below. It was a fantasy anthology that she had edited, and yeah, she said like weird fantasy was her favorite. So I found her very interesting, and could have probably talked to her for a long time. The fifth course arrived, and it was fried Brussels sprouts, and that was from Roy's Korean Kitchen. We had another bonus author join us, and this time it was Alice Winn. She is the author of In Memoriam. She was a delight. I really enjoyed talking with her. Many of you probably already know Alice Winn. She's an Irish writer who now lives in New York. And she's actually moved around quite a bit. And I think, would have had many stories to tell about that. And she's had many different experiences. So I also know that In Memoriam has been talked about a lot on BookTube, and people really like it. It is a World War I story. There were others at the table who had read it and spoke very highly of it. So I can't wait to read it. For the sixth course, we were served sliders from Burgers Near Me, and a new to me author, Diana Beresford-Kroeger, joined us. She was promoting Our Green Heart, The Soul and Science of Forests. And many of you know that I enjoy nature writing, and especially if it has to do with like our connection to trees. I didn't get a chance to really talk with Diana a whole lot because my end of the table was still really in conversation with Alice Winn. So that is not a complaint though, because I learned so much from our time together, so that was good, but I'm really looking forward to reading this. Now, at this point, I think the event was going longer than they had anticipated. Some of the authors had to prepare for other events that were happening, and some people had to leave. So for the seventh course, we were served tacos from Takori by Duncan Lee. And we had Holly Gramazio join us. And Holly is an Australian writer based out of England, and her debut novel, The Husbands, has been on my wish list for some time now. And again, we didn't get much time with her. She was kind of whisked away pretty quickly, but she seemed to be a lot of fun. And this was her first time in Canada. So I really hope that she enjoyed herself, that she enjoyed Canada, that she'll come back. It was a real pleasure to meet her, and I'm really looking forward to finally getting to this book. Okay, moving on to the eighth course. It was a smoothie cup from Oakberry, and we had Marissa Stapley join us. And Marissa Stapley is an author that I've heard of, but I had never read any of her books. And of course, now I want to read all of them. She was great fun as well. You may know her book Lucky, which was Reese's book club pick, and the first Canadian book that has been picked for Reese's book club. So she was promoting the Lightning Bottles and talked about music and the inspiration behind the bands and songs used in the book. Marissa also writes under a pseudonym, Julia McKay, and she does that for her romance books. And we talked about romance as a genre and how authors who, write in different genres and how they're marketed. So it was a very interesting conversation. And as I said, she was wonderful. She was another author that we could have talked a lot longer with, for sure. So the 9th and final course was an elderflower cake. It was from Bar Chouette, and the event altogether lasted about 3.5 hours. It was wonderful to have the opportunity to have time with these authors, like food, great conversation, books. It was wonderful. And then also to see the different foods that are offered at the food hall. Like, that was very smart on their part. So I really hope that they do this kind of event again. Some of the people that I met, I also chatted with at other events. Same with some of the authors. And that was just a lot of fun. It brought even more community to the events. There was also a few people throughout the events that recognized me. I had a couple of people ask if I was a booktuber. And then when I would say yes, they said, "We follow you." So I want to say a shout out to all of the people at my table for Wordfest, which I called the Cool Kids table, because of course it was. And to the people who mentioned that they follow my channel and that they watch me. Hello to all of you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the festival and the events as much as I did. I thought it was so much fun. So the next event that I attended was one that I hadn't heard of before. It's called Literary Deathmatch, and it started in 2006. I will leave links below to their website and to, I think they have an Instagram account, so I'll leave a link to that as well. And basically there are 4 authors, usually 3 judges, but we had 4. There are 2 rounds of readings, and then there was a 1-star wonder round. And in the end, you have one champion. So maybe let me explain it a little more with who was there. So in the first round were Shashi Bhat versus Alice Winn, who I had met earlier in the day that I had lunch with. So they both did their readings. They had 5 minutes or less after their readings. And then the judges would then have their say. And the judges were Heather O'Neill, who was at several events promoting her book, The Capital of Dreams. Heather was focusing on the literary merit. Then Nita Prose was judging performance. And there was a YA writer, Alice Kuipers, I'm not sure how she says her last name. She was promoting her YA novel, Spark, and she was judging the intangibles. And because we had a 4th author, well-known Irish author, Roddy Doyle, he was judging the super intangibles. So I will be talking about him a little later as well. So I have to say that both authors, Shashi and Alice, were amazing at their performance and their delivery. But I also really liked having to hear what the judges had to say. Their feedback and their responses were really good, at capturing the writing and the humor and just all of the details. Plus, it was quite funny. It's quite humorous. Once they give some feedback for each author, they then take some time and they choose the winner of the round. And in the first round, Shashi Bhat won. So then we go to the second round, and they did it all over again. This time, JD Derbyshire, who is a comedian and author from here in Calgary, I didn't get a chance to pick up their book, but they were promoting Mercy Jean, the man-made making of a madwoman. I think that's what it is. I hadn't heard of JD before, and I didn't find out that they were from Calgary until after the event. So I will have to pick up their book. So this round was JD versus Catherine Hernandez, who's the author of several books. But she did read from this book, her most recent book, Behind You. And both of them, they had very passionate performances. And just all of the books were serious topics. but all of the readings also like made us laugh, and I love when authors can do that. You all know this already. So the only thing that kind of bugged me, and I don't know if other people noticed or if JD really cares, but what bugged me in this round was JD goes by they, them pronouns, and two different people, I won't say who they were, one of them kept using she, her pronouns, and then the other person used he, him pronouns. And I thought it would have been more professional to have known this ahead of time and to, have made sure they used the correct pronouns. So anyway, I will also say that at one point, one of them did correct themselves. So anyway, JD ended up being the winner of the second round. So then what happens is the two winners, Shashi and JD, both had teams made up of the other authors and judges, and they could choose who they wanted on their team. And they did a round of what they called 1-star wonder. And these were 1-star reviews of classics. So they put the quote from the review up, and then the teams had to guess as quickly as possible which classic they were talking about. So that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And in the end, JD's team came out on top, and JD was declared the ultimate winner. So I don't think I mentioned this, but this event was hosted by Adrian Todd Zuniga, who I don't think I've heard of before, but he is also an author and writer. And he was the one, he kept everyone on task and kept the event moving. So that was a lot of fun. He did a great job. The next event that I wanted to highlight was called Top of the Morning. And this event was with two Irish authors, Roddy Doyle, who I mentioned before, and Anne Enright. Both authors that I've heard of before, but both authors that I've never read. So this event was hosted by Marina Endicott, who I have mentioned and talked about on my channel before, especially when I went to the event with her and Elizabeth Hay. So for this event, Roddy Doyle was promoting The Women Behind the Door. Now, when I first went to pick up some books for this signing, I asked at the table if Roddy's books were part of a series. And I was told that you can start anywhere. So I picked this up, and it turns out that there are two other books, and this is the third book. So I found that very frustrating because I asked, it'd be different had I not asked, but now it's true that Roddy tries to write his books as standalones. He did say that. But this book is the third book to follow a character named Paula Spencer. And after another event, I even tried to see if I could, at least also pick up the first book. But they were out. They didn't have any more of this series left. So this will have to wait because I do want to read the other two. So Anne Enright was promoting The Wren, which has been out a bit longer. And both books are about women, mother-daughter relationships, and they deal with trauma. And all of that really appeals to me. I am also very interested to find out if I can add Roddy Doyle to my list of male authors who write authentic female characters. A woman in the audience mentioned that he was able to capture things, and she gave an example that she wondered how he knew that. And that's how I feel about very few male authors. Wally Lamb and Lawrence Hill would be that for me. I'm always looking to find more male authors who can do that well. The conversation around these books was obviously about the books, but also how they write, where they get their ideas, and being able to write any characters that they want and what that would mean. So I think that both Roddy and Anne have a lot of potential to become favorite authors of mine, so we will see how it goes. The final event that I want to highlight was very powerful. It was called What a Pair, and it was hosted by Pam Rocker, who was new to me. And the pair of authors were Tanya Talega and Canisia Lubrin. So Tanya Talega, who I have talked about many, many times on my channel, is an Indigenous writer and journalist. And she has written some fantastic nonfiction books about Indigenous issues, including Seven Fallen Feathers. Highly recommend. Her most recent book is The Knowing. And in this book, she shares her experience of trying to learn and uncover the truth about her great-great-grandmother. I think it's just two great-grandmas. Within this, she also shares the history of Indigenous peoples in Canada. Canisia Lubrin, I mentioned earlier when I talked about Wordfeast, because she joined us at the table. During that lunch and in this event, in even more detail, Canisia talked about Code Noir, and this is her debut fiction. I am so intrigued by this book. The starting point for this book, which is the real Code Noir, the real Black Code, is 59 decrees that were originally passed in 1685 by King Louis XIV. These articles defined the conditions of slavery. And in the fictional novel, each decree is linked with a fictional story. So Canisia talked to me about like what kind of stories. I asked what is this dystopian? And she said that all of the stories are different, from dystopia to fantasy. There's some historical fiction, there's many different genres, and maybe even some poetry, because she does write poetry. So just hearing her talk about this book at lunch was enough for me to pick it up. But the conversation between Tanya and Canisia, I think, sent a lot of people to pick both books up. Although they were telling different stories, like one through an Indigenous lens, the other through a Black person's lens, the stories are very similar. The histories are similar. And you could tell by watching the two of them interact that they understood each other in a level, like at a level that others cannot, and that they saw something familiar in each other. So this was one of the, if not the most powerful book event conversation that I had ever been part of. It could have gone on much longer, and I think that the audience would have been totally okay with that. I cannot wait to get to both of these. Also, the other thing I wanted to mention was that the host, Pam Rocker, strongly suggested the audio. She said that hearing these books, because they both narrate the books, hearing that from their voices was very powerful. And I think what I will do is read and listen, because I'll tell you why. I want to take into consideration Pam's suggestion of the audio. And I can totally see how hearing their voices tell the stories would make it more impactful. However, a really important part of both books is in the artwork. So the artwork on the cover of The Knowing is called The Scream. I'll put this a little closer so you can see. It's by Kent Monkman. Many of you may know who that is. Tanya talked about how she got this for the cover. This will be familiar to you if you are aware of Indigenous artists here in Canada, but if you would like to learn more, I'm pretty sure that Kent Monkman has a website. I'm pretty sure, so I can leave that below. I'll leave that linked below. But also, inside the book are more black and white pictures. Some of them are more paintings. I'm just trying to find one here. But some of them are also include photography and some of Tanya Talega's own photography and pictures from her home. With Code Noir, Canisia talked about the 59 decrees and how the publishers wanted to make them all nice and kind of prominent. And these are my words, kind of show them off. And Canisia was like, no, we are not. She wanted them to be more messy and kind of like scraps that she had found, you know? And so her friend and artist, and I don't know if I'm saying the name properly, but Turquoise Dyson, did all 59 of these in charcoal, and they're pretty amazing. So I want to make sure that I experience what the authors set out to do with the physical books as well. Because I think these are both really important. And they're high on my priority list. I might read The Knowing in November for Nonfiction November. And I think I'd like to read the books back to back if I can. So I'm hoping by the end of this year, at the very latest, for both of them. Keep your fingers crossed for me. So these were some of the experiences that I had at Wordfest this year. It was so much fun. I now have more new authors to read and to learn about. Please let me know if any of these authors are new to you, or some favorites of yours. Have you already read some of these books and some of these authors, or are you interested in reading any of them? Have you been to a book or author event or festival lately? I would love to hear all about it. I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget to make every day an adventure.